Hello, welcome pen friends. I'm going to show you today what worked for me for getting the nibs off my Jinhao 80s. I now have 3 of them, and that way I could put on nib choice, nibs of my choice. And on my first one, I put a Lamy broad nib, and then I've got a Lamy cursive nib and a stub nib on the other 2. So this is not thanks to me. This is thanks to pen friend Neil Piper for the suggestion of using the jewelry screwdriver. And also I went over and I watched a video by Inkquiring Minds, Doug over there. And that's where I got help enough with the one that wouldn't budge with the jewelry screwdriver. Because I had one that wouldn't even, this one, the nib would not move with this. I wish I was a little birdie or mouse in the corner to watch Neil's demonstration, because it could be that I'm not even fully understanding how to do this, but it worked for me, but the combination of things. So I wanted to bring it to you because it might work for you. But before we start, let me just say that please know that any kind of work like this you do on your pen could result in breaking it. And I'm not liable for that. So proceed with caution. You could break a feed, you could scratch a section, you could do lots of things that you might not want to do. So just kind of proceed carefully. And these are $8 pens, but still, if you're like me, I don't like to break anything, not even a $2 992 feed. That happened to me once. So, so just keep that in mind. The other thing that I'll say right off the bat is that in thinking about this, I don't believe I'll be switching these nibs around. These nibs are now at home on these pens because it turned out to be a lot like the way I feel about the Moon Man Mini. I can get the nib off, but I don't really like to. I don't like to mess with taking the nibs off. So the broad nib, the ones that I put the broad nibs on, they're staying on there. And if I want something else, I'll get another pen body to put like a stub nib onto the number 5 nibs. So it's, you get these nibs off with a piece of tape too, and it's not impossible. It's just that it's a little bit hair raising for me, and so I leave them on there. And that's how I feel about these. That may not be how other people feel, and maybe the more you change them, the easier it'll get. I don't know. But let's start. I've got a couple of old pens that we can do this with. I was going to use the All-Star. This is a beaten up All-Star, but I don't like that because the attribute I needed the most to show you is the fact that the nibs sort of sit down below the edge of the section in these pens, where you don't actually, well, you do on this one, but when you first get these and they have these little, the nib, I've probably thrown the nib. When they have these on them, they seem to sit down in there where you can just barely, if anything, I couldn't even see where the edge of the nib was when I first got it. So this Wing Sung 3008 that's all stained up is like that. The edge is there, and you can't really see it too good, but you can feel it with a screwdriver. Click, it just like you can feel it. So here's the deal. On this first Jinhao 80, the screwdriver moved the nib just enough for me to pull the nib right off with the Lobster band, but it didn't work that way with the other 2. They were stuck so bad I could not budge the nibs with the jewelry screwdriver. But let's go ahead and we'll do what worked on this first one on this Wing Sung. So I just put it in there carefully, and I just did this, and I got it out a little, and then this is loose, so it's going back on. But I'll try to hold my finger to show you what it looked like. I got it out about that much. Whoops. Oh, focus would be really nice. So I got it out just a little bit, and then I pulled it off with the Lobster band, and I was so excited. It was accomplished, and then easily put the broad nib, the Lamy broad nib, on there. And it's just writing like a dream. So there was that one. Then next came this one. And what happened with this one was, what I can demonstrate with this, with this pen here, because I've been fiddling with this to try to see if I could show you That's too loose. Yeah, I don't like that. You could lose a nib. Okay. So with the next one, we're pretending that this All-Star is my second Jinhao 80. We have to do that because I am not putting duct tape and screwdriver to these pens again. It was, you know, it was at the top of my nerve capacity to do this, but I got it done because I was really determined and you guys had given me such good tips. So what Doug was doing was using duct tape. Okay, so he put the duct tape on, and then he put a Kleenex at the back. Gosh, I don't think I even went over the 4 things recommended. The little jewelry screwdriver, some sort of a gripper. I had a disaster video I had to delete because Coco got up here and messed everything up. A Kleenex and a piece of duct tape. So the 4 items, which I'll put stuff in the description box. But okay, so he was doing it kind of like this. And then pulled it. And this is what happened. Exactly what happened to me with the Jinhao 80. The entire feed and the nib came off, and the nib was still on there. So I had to do it in 2 parts. Let me get some more duct tape. I had to go ahead and say, I wonder if I'll ever get that off. It's still attached to here. I've seen that before. I saw that on Chris Rapp 52's video. In the very beginning, before he'd started to get his all swapped off, and I saw that he had it disassembled, his first one, and it looked just like this. You know, it was there with that. So I got another piece of duct tape and just kind of like really was hoping and praying that it would work. Oops. And you don't need to duct tape back so far. You probably just want to get it to the edge of the nib because that's what you're trying to get off, right? Off of the feed. So then I did this, pulled, and then there. Okay, so I did it. I had my nib off. Yay! So that's the second one. And I now have the Lamy cursive nib on that pen because I really want to experiment with this one, and I'll be able to tell which one it's in because it has the gold clip and versus the silver one that has the broad nib. It kind of looks so much like my other Lamy 2000, so I'll know which one has actually got the broad nib. So then, let's see, next came the third one. And this is it so far, and hoping that I can resist more, but I'm not sure because I've had a few thoughts, but birthday, Christmas, allowance, that kind of thing. Okay, so let's put this back together. We have to line it up real carefully. Oops. The nibs go on just exactly the same way as on a Lamy Safari, nice and, you know, get it lined up right and everything, but put it in there. And then, let's see, we got to do that, and we got to get it right in there. You can kind of feel when it's where it's supposed to be. And usually goes right in. Hope I'm not trying to do it wrong. Let's see. Yeah, I get a little panicky. I just did this a few minutes ago. How's that? Yeah. Okay. Whatever I did there a minute ago. Okay, so we're back together again. This one here was exactly the same thing. I could not budge it by putting the little screwdriver. Let's see if we can now, just real carefully. Yeah, it moved a little. Let's see if it'll come off. No. See, I don't, you know. There, okay, it's back seated properly the way it was. I just don't want to mess with them now, and that's me being cautious. I'm not a gambler or a risk person whatsoever, just so you know. That's why I'm showing you on a weird pen that's not the right pen. So those are the tools. Those are the things that helped me. Duct tape, a gripper of some kind. You don't have to use the same kind I used. The little tiny eyeglass repair jewelry type thing, and Kleenex, which is now mangled with duct tape. The regular tape just wouldn't work for me. I mean, I have fairly good regular tape, but I couldn't get anything to happen. So these are aggressively hanging on to their nibs. And so, you know, to get to this place here where you have the nib you want on your pens, at least for me, it took those materials, and it took kind of you know, the tips from from Neil and from Doug, you know, on his video, and I'm just really, really glad I could do it. So that's it, and I apologize for not being brave enough to just continually put the tape on these. I don't want to do that because it puts a lot of residue on there. And okay, the one thing I wanted to mention was on the second pen, I felt like I almost did possibly a little bit of damage to the section. Let's see. Yeah, you may not be able to see it, but I know it's there somewhere up there, but I'm going to ignore that. I'm going to say that was a learning experience where I might have gotten a little bit aggressive with the screwdriver. Okay, so use caution. If you don't have to use a screwdriver, you know, the duct tape worked for me. Like I said, it was a two-step process, though. The whole feed came out, too, because the duct tape is very, at least the duct tape I have is actually Stick Tech, the original. I don't know, but that stuff, oh my gosh, you could repair something really heavy with that, I guess. Okay, so now we have the 3 pens, and I would like to peek into the ink journal with you and show you the wonderfulness of being able to write with the various nibs. Let's see. I have to fix this, I'm sure, because I've got it kind of, there we go. Okay, so let's get them in order here. The broad nib is here. The Lamy cursive is here. And the Lamy 1.1 is here. So let's see if you can see what I'm seeing. My glasses aren't quite right. Okay, so up here is the Jinhao 80 with the black Lamy broad nib. It looks and feels excellent, and it's got Diatramenous Alexander Hamilton, a gift from pen friend LE, and I love it. It surpasses, for my writing, my Lamy 2000 broad nib, because this is kind of how I want it to look. The Lamy 2000 broad nib is, to me, like kind of like a polished stub nib. It's more like a stub nib, but you know, it's not that I don't like it. I just like this better. And then the next one is the Jinhao 80 with the black and the gold trim, and I put on the Lamy cursive nib, and I'm still getting used to this nib. It's really neat. I want to work with it over and over and over with different inks, and right now I have Parker Black in it. That was a gift from a benefactor and fellow YouTuber. So this is really wonderful. I can see the line variation between the vertical and horizontal, but it's subtle. So I don't know, maybe I'll look for something else for a nib later. There's been mention of another one on a Jinhao 35, but I don't know anything about that really, how to order that or what it is. Okay, so next is the red one, the red and gold Jinhao 80. And I have a Lamy 1.1 because I wanted to see how I liked this nib that I don't particularly like on my safaris very much on this. And I thought, it's time to keep a stable nib in a pen and try it over and over and over with different inks, and that's what I want to do. And right out of the bat with the TWSBI Crimson, I love it. That's not normally my reaction. That's my reaction with, oh, it's here somewhere, with the 1.5 Lamy stub nib. So I was really excited to think that, I mean, it's smooth and juicy and just amazing. So anyway, it could be that these feeds are a little bit wetter than the Lamy Safaris. I don't know. All I know is I'm really, really happy to get these three, get the other nibs off. But then at the end, I kind of laughed at myself because the original nib, I have it squirreled away very carefully right here. It says glass nib, but that's not true. The one that came on the first Jinhao 80 is so good. It's a fine nib, and I don't usually write with a fine nib that often, but I am going to be, so I thought to myself, you didn't even leave one fine nib on these pens, but I will think about that, and possibly with some birthday money, I'll get another one, and either, if the one that comes on, the new one I get is great, then I'll leave it, and if not, I'll take it off and put that one, that wonderful fine nib on. So I hope this was useful to somebody. I'm sorry that I'm kind of timid, but I don't usually do anything unless I'm absolutely sure that it's not going to, you know, break, or like, I just kind of like, it takes me forever. The first Jinhaos that I swapped, oh, and that's my final story. I think I want to tell you about that, even though it's not related to this, but it's my video, so you've already gotten the meat that you came for out of the video. When I was going to say when I was younger, but it was only 5-6 years ago, I was just so chicken and I couldn't get the nibs out of these either. And Larry from Larry's Fountain Pen kept telling me, you can do it, Chris. I felt the same way at first, and I thought, how could he? How could he have ever felt that way? He's so confident, and everything he does is just like wonderful, and he hacks this and that and switches nibs. But, you know, then of course another benefactor sent me some Lobster bands. So that was a boost. And then I did buy section pliers from Anderson Pens, and I got over my fear and I started pulling them off, you know, usually with this, and sometimes the first time or two it took a Lobster band. But then recently I realized, what is wrong with my head, basically? Because if all I wanted to do was go ahead and say I had a broad nib on the purple one and I really wanted the broad nib on the blue one, all I had to do was just switch them. I mean, I thought to myself, why was I not thinking about that? So we're pretending this is a broad nib. It's actually a Goulet fine nib. I don't know how it got on this pen, because, I mean, the purple one even. So this is how I switch nibs on them now. I only have one with gold trim, so I just switch them. But bless me, I did never think of that till very recently, so I'm just outing myself on that. But so now I've got on the purple one, the one that typically I keep on the blue one, because I like blue inks in a stub nib for some reason. But I can switch it so easily because they're all made... They're all like this, as long as you're talking silver trim, and all but one of mine are silver trim. So now that's how I do it now. That's how that's how it progresses when you start to figure things out, I guess, or, you know, little by little, trial and error, and that's what makes it fun. I'm not trying to say it isn't, because it is. So hopefully this helped, but please, in the comments, if you have other even better, safer, easier tips on how to do this, I am not done learning, that's for sure. And I love to learn new things that are either easier or more efficient, less scary. The duct tape doesn't scare me. The worst would be that some residue, you know, I'd have to get on the nib and kind of clean the residue off. But I didn't notice that as bad with the duct tape as I did with the regular tape. That regular Scotch tape is awful for leaving residue. So I think I'll leave the video at this, because I thought it was going to be a lot shorter, but I'm eager to hear in the comments, because I mean, that's how I actually got even the confidence that I'd be able to get that first one swapped, and did. The little screwdriver method worked for me. It worked so fast that it kind of was too fast for me to like take notes. I mean, it just it did budge the nib enough to then pull it off with the Lobster band. So maybe you'll be lucky and that's all yours will take. But I'd like to hear how you did it, or, you know, how you got your nibs off of these to swap them, and if ongoingly you're going to keep swapping them, or are you going to dedicate pens to nibs. For now, I'm going to leave this red one with the stub nib, of course. Okay, I will see you next time. Thank you very much for being here. Bye for now.